Okay, well, welcome to this Building Scholars session today focused on grant writing. I'm Tim Collins. I'm the director of the Institutional Development Core with Building Scholars, and I'm a professor in the Department of Sociology and Anthropology. And today, Lourdes Sechagoyen and I are going to be co-presenting the material. And the purpose of this session is twofold. First, it's to provide general recommendations for grant writing with an emphasis on writing proposals for highly competitive national institutes of funding mechanisms. And the second is to provide you with an overview of two Building Scholars grant opportunities which require NIH-style proposals as part of the application and award process. And with that, I'm going to let Lourdes take over. We have a action-packed hour ahead. Turn that off.
Thank you, Tim. I'm Lourdes Sechagoyen. I'm the director of the Campus Office of Undergraduate Research Initiatives here at UTEP, and I'm also an associate professor of chemistry here at UTEP. And what I want to do today, this is not working. Great. The first thing is I want everyone to understand that this is funded by the Building Scholars Grant. So this webinar comes to you thanks to the National Institutes of Health. And what we're going to do is divide this workshop into two parts. In the first part, I'm going to talk about general recommendations for any grant proposal that you might want. Of course, this is not as comprehensive as we would like it to be, because we would need about 4 hours for you to actually start writing something for your grants. But at least I'm going to give you general recommendations. The second part, Tim is going to talk specifics about the two funding mechanisms that Building Scholars is funding, the SEED program and the pilot projects. And then we're going to open the floor for questions and answers. We are recording this webinar. All of the audience that is remote, their microphones had been muted, but please, those of you are connected remotely, enter any questions that you might have on the chat box of the GoToMeeting, and we will be addressing those questions towards the end. Those of you in the audience here present, please hold your questions until the very end. If you have questions, just jot them down and we'll be happy to address them at the very end. So let's begin. This is what I'm going to be talking about. Funding rates and the competition. Who are you competing against? Why do people get declined, and how do you avoid those pitfalls when you're writing your proposals? We're going to talk a little bit about the reviewers and how you write your proposals to reviewers. We're going to talk then about those critical steps in writing winning proposals. And finally, I'm going to give you some other recommendations. So the first question that I have for everyone here, and just give me a show of hands, is what is the average success rate for most grants? Is it A, less than 10%, B, 10 to 20, C, 20 to 40, D, greater than 40, or E, B and C? That means between 10 and 40. So how many of you say it's A? Just show me your hands. B. Charles is not participating. Are you B or A? B. C? D? E? Okay, in reality, yes, the answer is B, between 10 and 20%. So the second question is, you know that the typical review categories are excellent, very good, good, fair, and poor for NSF, or high impact, medium impact, or low impact for NIH. So my question is, what percentage of proposals fall into the excellent or high impact category once all reviews are combined? How many of you say the answer is A, B, C, D? Look at this chart. I didn't make this up. This is actually published. High performers fall into the 10 to 20% category, 16% of them. Which leads me to the answer to the question above. Where is the competition? There is your competition, in that 10 to 20% 6% that receive the excellence or the high impact. These are the people that you're competing against. You need to write proposals that fall into the excellent category. Otherwise, you won't get funded. It's as simple as that. We've been there. I've been there. So when you're developing proposals, and it goes for reviews, and the program officers are making recommendations, in order for them to make award recommendations, your proposal needs to be compelling. It needs to fall into the high impact category. The other important thing to consider is it needs to fit the agency's portfolio, that particular program. If you're writing a proposal in physics and you send it to chemistry, it's going to get declined for obvious reasons. So it needs to fit their program. It needs to fit their special mission as well. You don't write an energy proposal and send it to the National Institutes of Health. You send it to the DOE. You don't write a health-related proposal and send it to the DOE. You send it to the National Institutes of Health. So you need to include information about the impact of the project on your institution or on your state. You're selling your proposal. So what kind of impact does it have? Nowadays, it is very important to include how it will impact diversity. This is when they're talking about broader impacts at NSF. Talk about the diversity. How is your project going to impact diversity? And finally, if it is an education proposal, and even if it isn't, if it's a research proposal, how is it going to impact education as well? Some of the reasons why agencies decline proposals is that the proposal is not competitive based on review criteria. This is one of the statements that they put. If indeed your proposal did not meet the review criteria, they say that. The program officer will say that in the general review, right? And we're going to talk about how do you address the review criteria in this presentation. Another reason for decline is flaws identified by the program officer. In general, major flaws, which instantly get your proposal declined. If it's not a good fit for the program portfolio. And this is the one that hurts the most. The program funds were not adequate to fund all competitive proposals. This is a very kind statement from the program officers, saying your proposal was okay, but we didn't have enough funds to fund all of the competitive proposals. What that means is your proposal did not fall into that excellent high impact category. It fell into the very good or the medium impact, which is exactly where you don't want to be. You don't want to be in that gray area. You want to be high up there to ensure that you get funded. So, who do you write your proposals to? You write your proposals to reviewers. Once you go, and we're going to go in detail about that, all of those review criteria, you want to make sure that you make it easy for the reviewers. Reviewers are very busy people. They are moms and dads like you. They are faculty members like you. They have spouses that want you to cut the grass or take the kids to soccer practice, etc. Okay? They are faculty members with busy office hours, with students parading through their office all day, classes to teach, research to conduct. So you need to make it easy for them. When you write proposals, when you're reading a proposal as a reviewer, you don't want to have to be flipping pages back and forth with information. You need to make it flow so that you read it in one go. You don't need to go back. What does this person mean about something on page 1? And I'm already on page 10. Okay? So make sure that it flows nicely. As I said, they are extremely busy people. Make it easy for them. So what are those critical steps that you must follow? The first step ever that you need to take is dissect that RFP. Dissect it. And by that I mean, Read it beginning to end at least once. Make annotations, highlight the important parts. Then make an outline of the RFP. And I insist on that. Make an outline. It sounds kind of silly because you have the RFP in front of you, but it is the only way that you will ensure that every statement, every sentence in that RFP is crystal clear, that you don't miss anything on that RFP. Okay? Then include the review criteria. This is how the reviewers are going to score. And we're going to go into some of them in detail. If it's an NSF proposal, the review criteria in general are intellectual merit, broader impacts, and then each particular program has specific review criteria in that solicitation. If it is NIH, there is the significance, the investigator, innovation, approach, and environment. And by the way, you don't need to take pictures or take a lot of notes about this because we are recording this and we're going to post all of the slides on the website. And actually, it's going to be with my voiceover, so I hope I don't say any cuss words here. So, NIH review criteria. For those of you that are writing to NIH proposals, that link, this is a must-go place. They actually tell you if you're writing an R01 or an R25 or an R15, etc. They tell you what the review criteria for each of them are. So I'm going to go quickly over the review criteria for an NIH R15. People at UTEP do not qualify for R15 anymore, but it gives you a good example. And I just highlighted what I'm going to talk about. So in the area of significance, for example, does the project address an important problem or a barrier to progress in the field? As you write your proposal, you need to go through those review criteria and check mark whether you cover that or not. And notice that there are 3 other areas of significance that you need to read about. Okay, I'm just going quickly over them. In the investigator side, notice that is the project director, the principal investigator, qualified to conduct this project? If it's an early stage investigator, a postdoc, etc., is the individual qualified? Does the individual have the appropriate experience to conduct this program? You need to make sure that you actually verbalize that in the project. What is your experience? It's not just putting it in your bio sketch at the end. You know, a little paragraph saying what experience you have, what expertise you have that makes you qualified for this is important. Is the program innovative? Is it really novel or not? One of the things that you need to address. In the approach, is your arguments, are your arguments sufficient to convince the program officer that the project is appropriate? Are your specific aims appropriate for the project? And then the environment. Do you have the facilities necessary to conduct this program? Okay, that's essentially what it is. So if you address the review criteria and then you check mark as you're writing your proposal, you check mark, I covered this, and covered it well, you have a better chance. So always follow those guidelines. This can be the kiss of death if you do not follow guidelines. If the guidelines say it's a 10-page proposal and you submit 11 pages, you're in trouble. It will not be reviewed. If the RFP says that you need to use a font 11 and 1-inch margin, make sure that you do so. Okay, it is critical. I have seen proposals that get declined because of that. If the proposal is due no later than 5 p.m. Your Mountain Time on Monday, March 14, make sure that you submit it not at 5:01 or 5:02. It will be rejected. I've seen that happen. Okay, I saw a bill grant, $24 million. I heard about this one. It arrived an hour late. And this was thousands of pages, right? It was not even reviewed. So it can have catastrophic consequences. So when you're writing a proposal, on the left side, I have the 8 basic components for a proposal. This is general, regardless of what agency you have. So you have the executive summary, an introduction of the institution, the problem statement, goals and objectives, methods, design, and activities, evaluation. In some projects, you need an evaluation. In others, you don't. Sustainability and the budget. But notice that you write them in a different order. The first thing that you want to put together is your problem statement. After that, you write your goals and objectives, your method, your project design, your activities, the budget, and the evaluation. And notice that I underline those 4 because you need to do them iteratively. When you're writing your goals, you are thinking about the activities that you're going to conduct in order to achieve those goals. The budget is critical because the budget will dictate what you can and cannot do, right? And an evaluator can help you design those goals and objectives and state them well. So it comes in unison. Then you write the introduction to the institution. Then you write about sustainability, and we're going to go in detail about this. And finally, the executive summary. My presentation is going to follow the order on the left, not the order on the right. You are going to follow the order on the right when you write your proposal. So the executive summary is what we call the project summary. In some agencies, they call it an abstract. Okay? It's what appears at the beginning, but it's the one that you write last, always. It's usually 1 page, and it will outline all of your specific aims, and it's what will give the initial impression to the reviewers. Some reviewers lack the time to go into detail, so they just browse through the proposal in general, but what they focus on is that project summary. So make sure that that's the most perfect part of your proposal, right? The introduction of your institution will have, of course, data about your institution, the organizational structure. What are the mission? What's the track record of the institution? You are going to present relevant information to the agency, the program about your institution. It includes institutional commitment. In addition to a letter of commitment that you're going to ask your vice president for research or your dean or your department chair, you want to have a little statement within the proposal about what is the institution committing to with this project. And of course, it establishes credibility. Other recommendations that I have is, in the introduction, your first sentence should always be, I am requesting funds for this program, this project. You should start there. As a reviewer, that's the first thing that I want to, what is this person asking for? Funds for this particular project, rather than starting the University of Texas at El Paso, blah, 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 blah. Start there. What is it that you're asking for? Okay. The introduction is never a literature review. You use literature, citations to support whatever statements you're making. But don't go into a full literature review. That's what papers are for. That's what journal articles are for. And for training grants, data is critical. Okay? Data is what is going to indicate what impact your project will have on the institution, the college, the department, the students, etc. So data is critical. Don't forget that piece. So let's go over the project statement. This is, again, a well-supported statement that you make. It can be a paragraph, it can be a couple of sentences, which is why you're writing this. What's your motivation? What is the problem that you want to solve? So it should be, of course, relevant to the agencies of the program requirements. It includes the benefits. to the agency, the institution, the students. And finally, I prepared a problem statement here just to give you an idea. And the only reason I put it in there, it's long, etc., is so that since this is being recorded and it's going to appear on the website, you have a sample. So the problem here says a larger representation of Hispanics in biomedical research careers is needed to serve as role models to those entering the field, conducting studies related to health disparities affecting Hispanics, and to make the case for recruiting Hispanics for critical trials. Okay. However, the percentage of students who leave the sciences after the freshman year is 60%, 25% after the sophomore year, and 10% after the junior year. It is evident that a program that retains students during the freshman year is important to increase representation of Hispanics in the sciences. So this is a compelling case of why a particular program that I'm going to propose is important. This is the problem. Okay. By the way, those numbers in the middle sentence are not real. I just made them up. Okay. So don't quote this. Notice that this is a problem statement. This is not a goal. Your goal is to solve this problem. So what you're going to propose is a solution to this problem. So how do you put up goals together? Goals need to be smart. Every goal that you write, always try to make it smart. The first thing is the S stands for specific. That's the what. The second M stands for measurable. That means how many, how much. Even if it is a research proposal, you should be able to measure whether you succeeded or not somehow, even if it has nothing to do with training students. You should be able to measure something. It should be achievable. It should be relevant. That's the why. And it should be time bound. When? By when do you think you'll have this ready? If your project involves an evaluation, then you can make your project smarter, because the evaluation will allow you to get feedback to then redo your goals or redo an activity. So your goal should always be smart. So based on that problem statement that I presented before, I have this goal: to increase the number of students participating in course based on the graduate research experiences, also known as CURES, in a biomedical research related area during their freshman year. Okay, and my rationale for this is that it is known that undergraduate research experiences have a strong impact on freshman retention. So if I develop a program that gets freshmen into research, we should be able to retain more of them. So this is a goal that actually tries to address the problem that I presented before. Okay. This is a very specific goal. It tells me exactly what I'm going to do. It's measurable because I'm talking about an increase. Okay, increase the number of students participating in course-based research. So I have a baseline that I can measure against. Okay, it is achievable if I find the professors to teach those courses, right? It is relevant to the problem that I'm trying to solve, and it is time-bound. I'm going to do this for freshman students. Goals are not activities. So I propose that I'm going to develop cures. What cures am I going to develop? These are the activities. Develop and implement 2 freshman level cures. 1, to identify the effect of a library of chemical compounds on the Zika virus. I just made that up. Or 2, to determine the effect of certain nanoparticles found in irrigation water on the growth of tomato vines. I made that up too. Okay? Those are specific cures that I want to develop. Those are the activities that I'm going to implement in order to achieve the goal of increasing the number of freshmen participating in cures, in order to solve the problem of not having enough retention of freshmen in STEM. Okay, so as we design those activities, what you're going to explain in your proposal is how is the project expected to work, how the project will solve the stated problem. Always include a timeline. When do you plan to start? And when do you plan to have some results? What methods are you going to use to collect the data? I always recommend that if your project involves an evaluation, include a logic model. We don't have time today to go over logic models. That's another presentation just for another half an hour or so. But that link will give you a very good basis for how to go about developing a logic model. Always use flowcharts, pictures, etc. It's always more fun than to read a lot of text. So if you can include pictures, it's always better. Include information about how the different parts interrelate on your activities. If you need personnel, explain who that personnel will be. Are you going to need undergraduates, graduates, postdocs? Is this faculty driven? Is there going to be a collaboration among various institutions, etc.? What each individual is expected to do. Many times we write proposals and we say we're going to involve undergrads. What are they going to do? Explain, because that's a question that a reviewer will have. Right? So always explain and identify what facilities you're going to be using, if there is transportation needs, what are the support services, what kind of collaborations you're going to have. For the activities, again, always justify your course of action. What innovative features are you going to have? And use current references. It's horrendous when you're reviewing a proposal for a project that will start in 2017 and you see references from the 1980s. You mean to tell me that that's how far back that idea came and nothing has happened since? Make sure that you have more recent references. If you're going to do an evaluation, the evaluation is key to determine if the goal has been achieved. That's the M, the measure part of SMART. So what are your expected outcomes? That's the first thing that you need to put in your evaluation section. Always invest in a good evaluator. If you need evaluation, put money aside for that evaluator. That evaluator is probably the most valuable person that you're going to have on your project. That person can sit with you and help you rewrite those goals because they know, remember the M part of SMART goal? They know whether something can be measured or not. And if the way you're stating it is not measurable, they can twist that goal around to help you make it measurable. Okay, so they help you think about this. And you yourself cannot be your own evaluator in most proposals. So you need an external person. And external doesn't need to be external to the institution. It's simply external, unbiased to your particular project. Agencies want sustainability. They want to know how you plan to institutionalize your project, particularly those education projects. How do you plan to continue the program after funding ends? So this is where you need to contact your administrators and say, can you give me a sustainability plan? Can you commit to continuing funding this after we prove that this is a viable project? Okay. Of course, that doesn't always work well with research per se, scientific research or otherwise, but with education programs, sometimes you can institutionalize them. And of course, what is the institution committing short and long term? It's hard to get higher administrators to commit to anything. I warn you about this. It's very hard to get them to commit to anything. The best statement that I have received so far has been, if this particular initiative proves to be helpful in retaining more students, we will think about how we're going to sustain it. So, it's hard. It's hard. The section on the budget, it's another critical piece. It will help you determine what you can and cannot do. So always plan it simultaneously with your goals and activities. How much are you going to need for materials and supplies? That is realistic. Who can you hire to help? How many students can you afford? How many graduate students? Can you afford a postdoc? So all of these things are important. Is there a coordinator for the particular program that you're proposing? And how much are you planning to pay that person? And of course, the evaluator. Invest more in the evaluator than in the coordinator. That much I can tell you. Other recommendations that I have is things that you need to consider are, do the reviewers and program officers identified strengths in your proposal? This is when you're revising a proposal. Did they identify strengths? Stick with those. If they did, stick with those. If there are weaknesses that the reviewers identified, make sure you address those weaknesses. Don't rewrite the same thing because you know they're going to, again, knock you down. Are there ways that you and your colleague can strengthen the proposal before submission? The hardest thing that one can face as a proposer is when one gets declined. And the first thing that you do is start bad-mouthing the reviewers. They don't know anything. But then you go home, you sleep on it, you reread those reviews, and then you say, oh my goodness, they're right. Point one. Oh my goodness, they're right. Point two. So once you absorb, you get over the anger of having been declined, then address those points because most of the time they are right. So if you have questions, remember that program officers at federal agencies are federal employees. They work for you. They have an obligation to respond to your emails and your phone calls. So make sure that you talk with them. They're actually very nice people for the most part. They are not going to tell you what to write on your proposal, but they can tell you what not to write. My final recommendation is find colleagues that are willing to read your proposal. Now, if you find a colleague that is willing to do this, listen to them. Don't have them read the proposal and then discard every recommendation that they make. Okay? Do listen to them. So now we have reached part two, where my colleague team is going to take over and talk to you about the different pieces for the seed funding and the pilot grant.
All right, thanks, Lourdes. That was great. Like you said, I'm going to be talking about specific grant opportunities that are being funded by Building Scholars. Okay, the two opportunities focus on different things. One of the opportunities focuses on enhancing institutional capacities to engage undergraduates in research training. The other focuses on enhancing faculty research capabilities, so funding innovative cutting-edge research that can then bring in undergraduate students into that research, cutting-edge research process. Okay, and both of these are available to UTEP and pipeline partner faculty. We have a few pipeline partner faculty members here from EPCC today, I believe. And then we also have pipeline partner faculty who are actually tuning in via GoToMeeting right now with us. So the first program is the seed funding program, and the second program is the pilot grant program. The pilot grant program also can incorporate research partners, faculty at our research partner institutions. Okay. So the seed funding program is available exclusively to UTEP and pipeline partner faculty, and the purpose is to promote institutional development at UTEP and the pipeline partner institutions in the area of undergraduate research training by supporting the development of new courses, mentoring activities, or other programmatic offerings. We're thinking of like curricula, programs that will engage undergraduate students in authentic research experiences or research training. Okay, so this program is running over the course of 3 years. There are currently 2 awards that are in progress right now. So those are the 2015-2016 awards. There's going to be a 2016-2017 round and then a 2017-2018 round. I believe most of you received the RFP. I've been contacting people via email regarding the 2016-17 program that's going to be underway. There'll be up to 3 awards per year funded through the seed funding program with a maximum of $20,000 per each award for a total of $60,000 per year. The request for proposals is already posted on our website. I provided information about that to you all. Letters of intent are due on the 1st of April 2016, and then full applications and proposals are due on the 1st of May 2016. Okay, in terms of the application and review process, it's modeled after NIH proposals. And there's an internal layer of review that we engage. Okay, I thought I turned it on. So yeah, we have a proposal review board that includes faculty across our research partner institutions. So while I refer to this as an internal process, it actually includes people at a variety of universities. There's also an additional layer of NIH review from the program officers for the build program that is required prior to awards being made. So the target start date, it aligns with our budget years for the Building Scholars Program. The target start date's the 1st of July 2016, and the end date will be the 30th of June 2017. And that's pretty hard and fast. It's driven by, we can't carry over funds in this program, and so we can't provide extensions to people. It's actually a touchy business trying to get extensions for anything with these awards. Okay. Okay, and with that being said, right now I'm going to show you, I'm going to go dive into the actual website and the request for proposals and point out a few things in it that will be relevant to writing these proposals. So I'll see you in a few seconds here after I operate this. Okay, and this is the Building Scholars website right here. I don't know if any of you have gone there and checked it out. You'll see under the announcements right now, we have both the faculty pilot grant program as well as the seed funding program listed right there. And you can click on those links and you can go in and look at those specific RFPs there. If those announcements go down sometime in the near future, you can also access this through faculty development. So there are multiple doors, multiple ways of getting to the information. The seed funding program, if you click read more, you can go into it and it gives a brief description of the program, and it also provides the form site link. So you'll see that, I think my cursor here, you can see probably that the letter of intent is due the 1st of April 2016, and there's a form site link. If you click on that, that's where you'll upload your PDF document. And just a heads up, the letters of intent will not be reviewed. They're not being evaluated. They're simply for me to get a sense of how many proposals I'm going to be getting, what topical areas, and then at that point I can quickly solicit members of our proposal review board to enlist them in the process of reviewing, so that when I receive full applications on May 1st, I can quickly just distribute those proposals for review. They won't be evaluated. Okay. And then you have the actual full application submission link right there that includes, we're asking for Word document, PDF, and then also we have a space to upload supplementary materials as well, supplementary documents. Okay. This is the Microsoft Word document. Notice it's not a PDF document, and that's for a specific reason. This is the actual RFP. At the beginning, there's information provided about the Building Scholars Program, and I strongly recommend that before you write your proposal that you inform yourself as best as possible what Building Scholars is. Check out our website and the links on the website. Also, I recommend going and checking out the Enhancing the Diversity of the NIH-funded Workforce page at the NIH website, because that provides the broader context for what this whole thing's about. If you understand that broader context, you're going to have a clearer idea of what's going to contribute to those broader goals and aims of this initiative, okay? All right, there's information about award features and requirements. It includes how much money, the budget description. It also talks about the institutional eligibility, who can apply for this, from where, the timeline, which I already discussed, the letter of intent, along with the form site links, as well as the proposal and the full application links. You then get into several pages where we've actually provided you with the review criteria. The next several pages is actually a document that I provide all of the reviewers for these proposals. And so if you go through, I strongly recommend that you go through this and look at each of the items you'll be evaluated based on, because that's how you're going to be evaluated. And if you're aware of that, that'll help you bolster what you're doing with your proposal. And I'm just going to scroll through that quick. You'll see that there's several areas, the ones Lourdes talked about, that you need to address in any given proposal. Then we arrive at the reason why this is a Word document is that we've provided a template for writing your proposal. So when you write your seed funding proposal, and the pilot grant proposal is structured very similar to this. The RFP for the pilot grant program is structured in a parallel manner, and I'm not going to show you that one because of it, it would be redundant. You're basically going to delete those pages that precede this, the review criteria and the initial page. And then there's also an appendix that we've included here that contains a biographical sketch template as well as an example biographical sketch. And you'll need to actually provide NIH-style biographical sketches with your proposals, not just a random resume or anything like that. It has to be an NIH-style biographical sketch. So what I recommend you do is you delete those preceding pages, you delete the appendices about the biographical sketches, and you immediately start working on your proposal from this template, okay? And it provides, each section, we actually provide bulleted items that provide guidance and instructions, even page length requirements for certain elements like the abstract, a specific aims page that has to be a separate self-contained page. And then there's a 6-page maximum for the research strategy that you're presenting. And I'll scroll down to that here quick, but you'll see that there's, now this is modeled after the NIH PSH 398 form. So many of you will be familiar with the way this document looks and the various elements of this document. It pretty much is like an NIH proposal. You'll enter all the information on your co-investigators. You'll include biographical sketches for the PIs as well as all the co-investigators working on the project. There's budget specifics here that you should look through to know what restrictions exist. There's a budget page, an NIH budget page, a budget justification that's limited to 1 page, and there's bullets telling you there what you need to address. The abstract, no more than 500 words. We've provided bullets in terms of what it should include. So the project strategy may not exceed 6 pages in and of itself. The specific aims page is separate from that. So the specific aims page is 1 self-contained page, and then the project strategy, the other elements of it, must not exceed the 6 pages here. And I've provided actual length suggestions for each of the elements here. You needn't follow them, but they're the types of recommendations that will lead to a balanced proposal in terms of the various elements. So I recommend you work from this document in developing your proposal. Now, in terms of human subjects, if you're doing a seed funding project that integrates an authentic research experience and it involves the inclusion of human subjects, you're going to need to have IRB approval for this. And you can do that by either providing approval, the approval letter that you already have in your hands that covers the actual project and also the time period under which the project will unfold. But many of you may not already have that IRB approval, so you'll need to seek approval. And you don't have to have approval already when you apply, but you need to show in the proposal that you've actually inquired with the IRB personnel at UTEP. It's Athena Fester. She's included in a contact bullet up there. Find out what it's going to take to get IRB approval for this and include in your proposal that you've contacted her and that you'll be pursuing it. You anticipate that this is what's going to be required, okay? Vertebrate animals, it's the same thing. So this is a planned enrollment form right here, a planned enrollment report. If you're including human subjects, you'd complete this. If you're not, you won't. Vertebrate animals is similar to IRB. I just described that. We have an IACOC contact here at UTEP. You need to make contact and make sure that your project, first of all, it has to be approved, and if it's not, you're going to need to seek approval for it. We had a pilot grant that was awarded this past year that was actually delayed because they didn't have the proper IACOC approvals in place, and so it compressed the project period for the investigators. All right, there's a few other areas that you need to address, including a timeline with key milestones, a plan for involving students, your references. If you have any letters of support or collaboration, you would include those with your proposal as well. And then there's the biographical sketch template and an example. So I'll close that out right now, and I'm going to come back to the PowerPoint. All right. Okay, and I'm flashing up this slide right here quick because it shows you the awardees from this inaugural year of the seed funding program. And there are 2 projects there. Notice that they're both funded at the Pipeline Partner Institutions, which means that people at Pipeline Partner Institutions are going to be genuinely competitive for the seed funding program. Okay, now in terms of the actual recommendations I have for achieving success with seed funding proposals. Successful proposals will aim to develop programmatic offerings to enhance undergraduate research training through the creation of new courses or training programs that will be developed, piloted, and eventually institutionalized, all right? We don't want to fund nice projects that don't generate those broader, enduring impacts for the undergraduate training environment at the institution of focus, all right? High quality proposals will also involve projects that promise to generate long-term impacts beyond the period of funding, which is what I meant by institutionalizing them. They'll also closely connect with the purpose of the BUILD initiative, which is focused on expanding engagement of people from underrepresented backgrounds in the biomedical research workforce, okay? They'll also successfully communicate the importance of the proposed work to reviewers from a range of disciplinary backgrounds. So that means you need to follow some of the general suggestions that Lourdes made. Write accessibly, write clearly, avoid unnecessary jargon, make it a smooth reading process for reviewers, okay? I also recommend that you connect with the Building Scholars Center, and that again involves informing yourself about what this whole thing's about. I mean, if you're gonna propose developing a research-based course, for example, then go to our webpage. We already have pages up regarding research foundations courses and research-driven courses. You know, it'll give you some food for thought if that's what you intend to do, okay? And then another recommendation is just to contact me if you have any questions about how you might connect with Building Scholars in order to develop a proposal that creates synergies with existing aims and activities. Okay, moving on to the pilot grant program, and this is definitely distinct from the seed funding program. There was some confusion last year about what types of proposals were best suited for one versus the other. So the seed funding program addresses enhancements to the undergraduate research training environment, okay? The pilot grant program, in contrast, supports innovative cutting-edge research projects, okay? And it involves providing support to teams of 2 or more individuals from different institutions to conduct that innovative biomedical research, to create research experiences for undergrads, and to develop collaborative relationships among the partner institutions, which will result in future funding opportunities, externally funded research. For this program, you can actually have pipeline partner and research partners serving as PIs, but you must also include a UTEP faculty person as a PI on these projects. This funding program runs 1 year beyond the seed funding program, so it's a 4-year program. There are 2 awards maximum per year with a max of $20,000 each for a total of $40,000 per year. The RFP is constructed in parallel fashion to the seed funding one. I'm not going to open it up now. It's constructed in a very similar way, so I'll let you look at that yourself. The letters of intent are also due the same day as the seed funding, as are the full applications, the full proposals. Okay. And again, the application review process is parallel to the seed funding with the same target start date, the same end date. Okay. And again, I'm not going to go to the page right now for the sake of time, so we can leave time for questions and discussion. But please go check it out. Here's an example of the 2 pilot grants that were funded this inaugural year. And in terms of comments I have about them, the first project built on an already existing collaboration, and so this is a hint that may lead to success for some of you, is that if you already have cross-institutional collaborations in place, those are the types of collaborations that you probably want to nurture for this proposal. And it was effective for both Joder and Suggs, who had served as her mentor on research prior to the submission of the pilot grant proposal. Okay. You really do need, though, to engage undergraduates in the research training element of these projects in order to be competitive. That is a requirement, okay? And you need to make a compelling argument that in the future, as this research thrust continues to grow, more and more undergrads will benefit from being included in the research process, okay? Again, enhancing competitiveness for future funding is a big point. I actually recommend in your proposal specifying currently existing mechanisms, for example, at the NIH, that your collaborative team will plan on targeting in the future. That'll clarify how the path that you intend to pursue, right? And with that, I'm going to stop right now, basically, and open this up for questions and answers. Lourdes, you want to say something? Great. That's great. The other thing I wanted to add is that for those of you who have to leave early, because I know we're probably approaching 11:50 right now, this is being recorded, like Lourdes said. It'll be available. The discussion, the Q&A segment will be available online as well if you have to leave early.
So does the faculty at the whatever you call it, the participating partner institution, right? Do they have to be already associated with the build, or can it be anybody from that university?
Good question. It can be anybody. And in fact, that's an interesting thing about some of the funding mechanisms we have. We have a super mentor program and a summer sabbatical program. People from UTEP are applying to these, and they're identifying these people at our research partner institutions, for example, that haven't connected with us yet, but are like, whoa, that person looks good. And so, yeah, pursue your interests.
I had a quick question. Even for pilot grant, is it important to have a collaborator from pipeline partners, or?
So for the pilot grant project, no, there's no requirement for that. And even though so you notice that Suggs and Joder didn't have any pipeline partner faculty included. But Francia and I believe it's Aguilar from EPCC we're connecting with the pipeline partner institution. That's not a requirement, though. And in fact, one thing I didn't mention is that I actually think over the long term and in a highly competitive pilot grant review process, that those collaborations that include someone who has a really well-established research track record at the research partner institutions, there's going to be added value to those proposals. So you see what I'm saying?
Right. But for seed funding, it's important, right?
Well, for seed funding, you can have a seed funding proposal that's just at UTEP that doesn't actually include any pipeline partner institutions. So a given proposal at UTEP doesn't need to include pipeline partner institutions, and vice versa. Someone at a pipeline partner institution can propose a project that doesn't actually involve any investigators from UTEP. Now, one of the ones that was funded, the one in northern New Mexico this last year, they propose like developing a curriculum and also a neuroscience corridor that links northern New Mexico with UTEP. So that was a strength we saw that as, but it's not required.
There is a question from one of the remote people, from Dr. Miguel Narvaez. He asks, will IRB be required for UTEP and partner institutions as well when collaborating in a project?
You know, that's a great question, Miguel. Lourdes and I were just discussing this prior to the session today, and I need to follow up with Athena Fester at our UTEP IRB to determine whether that will be needed. My first gut instinct was to have everyone, whether they're UTEP or pipeline partner institutions, contact Athena Fester regarding human subjects research and find out whether that would be required as part of this. But I'll do the legwork on that myself. I'll look into it and determine whether a seed funding project at a pipeline partner institution needs to have both that institution's approval and UTEP's approval. I'll look into that and answer it. I hope that's not the case because it's just burdensome, but something tells me it may be required.
You need it. We need to. We are recording.
Okay, I have a few questions. The first one is, how structured do you want the letter of intent? Is it like an abstract, or is it just a few paragraphs, or is it just one paragraph?
You'll see if you actually look on the document that's posted there, there's like 5 elements. And honestly, I can't remember them off the top of my head, but I think we want a title, we want the team, the people, the investigators. I think we want maybe some brief description of what the purpose is. And then beyond that, I don't know what the other 2 items are, but there's actually, if you look at the request for proposals, that document I walked through, it includes what we're looking for.
And the second one is for the seed funding program, if the proposal is about a new course or a mentoring and you're talking about we have to provide racial distribution of human subject. And so is it predicted number and distribution because we don't know how many?
Yeah, it would be, for example, I have a sense of what you may be thinking about based on my knowledge of you, Lindsay, and that you may be recruiting students, for example, to participate from courses. What I would recommend doing is any pre-existing knowledge you have about the demographic composition of students who take those courses, populate the table with that information.
And lastly, can the page numbers be less than required? Is that a bad thing if it's less than the?
Well, in general, I mean, so here's the thing. In general, writing a proposal that is well below page length requirements is not a good idea. I mean, the problem most people have with proposals is that they need to trim down and streamline what they have. And so when someone submits a proposal, I've reviewed them before, that's like half the page length. You just can't get in the needed information, you know.
There is another question from a remote visitor. David Torres asks, can you reapply for seed funding?
And so is this for projects that have already been funded? Or, sorry, David, if you can hear me, if you're referring to projects that have already been funded or projects that were declined the first time around and you're resubmitting. If it's the latter, if it's a resubmission, of course, you can resubmit. But I'd have to reflect with the leadership team about whether you would be thinking about seeking more funding for a project that received funding in a prior year.
Yeah, he responded, yes, it has been for projects that have already been funded.
I'd have to talk with the leadership team about that because ultimately I can't just make that executive decision right here and now without reflecting on it. My gut tells me that we probably wouldn't want to fund projects like that because there are a lot of pipeline partner institutions, a lot of faculty who there's just a broader institutional need across the partner institutions. But I can look into that and talk with the leadership team about it.
Okay, thanks. Any other questions? Either from our remote visitors or our in-person.
Well, great. I encourage everyone to submit proposals for those mechanisms too.
Thank you so much for coming. And if you have additional questions, feel free to contact Tim. Don't contact me. One additional question.
One last question.
One last question, sorry. Where is the question? Can health-related programs be considered?
Oh, well, health-related research is the emphasis, so that's a definite yes. But I have a sense of someone maybe talking about applied health. Otherwise, the question would be just sort of so obviously yes, the answer.
Thanks, everyone.
I don't think I answered that, but